Hello guys, welcome to the Train Parrot and to another episode of the Elite Private Session. We just had a little bit of a hiccup, sorry about that. We didn't realize that the streaming software wasn't really working properly. I hope this time it's gonna be working. In this session, we're gonna be talking about PineScript. We are gonna do a session that is a bit more technical as usual. These sessions are oriented for Elite Patreon members. We focus every Thursday 1 hour on doing TA sessions on altcoins that you get to choose by selecting the ones that you prefer using a poll. We do that every Thursday at midday UK time. But once a month, we do a full session on PineScript, a more lean towards coding, technical setups, understanding how to do strategies and implementing your own indicators. And this is basically what Elite members wanted more or less once a month to do a stop on the technical side. And we have already had a session in June that was around how to implement indicators. We built a very interesting indicator based on just basic moving averages. As you can see in here, I'm just going to give you a catch up of what we achieved in the session 1. There is a playlist in the channel that you can follow up with all the previous sessions. If you missed the first one, I recommend that you watch that first. But let me give you a wrap up, just a reminder. We created an indicator that had two SMAs, 50 and 100, and we went to all the details of how to implement it using the technical analysis object, creating the SMAs, and then we added some labels in red and in green to see and highlight every time there is a crossover and a cross under. But indicators are fantastic. We can use them, for example, as an alert. If we go in here and we select the indicator that we just created, we can see that there is a buy and a sell. In the previous session, I explained step by step how to achieve that. With those alerts, you can send them to your email, you can use it as a push notification on your phone, or you can also call a webhook, which can start trading bots that are trading on your behalf on different trading platforms like 3 Week Hunter, Gainium, and all of those. But the problem, the main limitation of only working with an indicator and not a strategy, the big limitation of indicators is that you cannot backtest. So you can just visually see things. You can see where it will have taken a long, a short, maybe where you close the position and all of that. But you don't have access to the strategy tester. This tab in here is exclusively reserved if you are implementing strategy. The strategy will show you the drawdown, the run-up time, how long you take to close the deals, whether you are spending too much in fees because there's too many trades, or you could get some advanced metrics like Sortino, Sharpe ratio, and other indicators that tell you whether the strategy is in a good condition to later use it in a live market. So what we're going to do today, we're going to basically steal the code from that indicator and we're going to turn it into an actual strategy, okay? We have two options to do that. Option 1 is we grab the code and we could even give it to, ChatGPT, and we could say, hey, ChatGPT, convert my indicator into a strategy, and I promise you it will do it. If maybe 1 or 2 iterations, it's going to get it right. You can even copy the errors and pass it back to ChatGPT. But this session is not going to be about that. Why? Because we don't want to be that typical, let me do a metaphor in here, no offense, but imagine an old lady that has an issue with the pipes in the house and brings in a contractor. In this case, the contractor is like ChatGPT. And she says, well, there's a leak in the pipe. Can you fix it? And then she leaves the contractor alone and the contractor does everything and says that the pipes are perfect. But then the lady pays for the job, and at night the pipes are still leaking. What happened there? Well, she has no clue how to evaluate what the contractor did makes any sense. So in this session, even if you're going to use ChatGPT, you're going to learn how it works, what it's doing, and why we're selecting certain things, and every single line of code, what is the role of that line. Because once you get things from ChatGPT, at least you're going to be able to eyeball the code and say, makes sense, or no, this is completely bullshit. I'm going to push back to ChatGPT to do it properly. Okay. And this is the session to get you to become an adequate boss for ChatGPT so you can push back and improve it better. Or if you want to really go all naked and do the code by yourself, which I really encourage you to have a period where you challenge yourself and you code your own things. Right. So this is the code from the previous session. Let's zoom in here. And we got the top, which was a headline, the indicator that has the name. And then we have the calculations of the moving averages, all the detail of that in the previous session. But everything that I'm highlighting is the core of the indicator. This is how we calculate the signal for the buy, for the sell, and how we plot those shapes in B and S and green and red respectively. Then I'm excluding the alert code and I'm excluding the indicator because that's all I need. The strategy by itself has its own alerts, okay? So we could bring the alerts if you want them to behave like this, but I suggest that we just stick to the ones that come out of the box with a strategy. So let's hide now the script and let's create a strategy. So how can we create a strategy? Let's go to the Pine editor and let's click in here and let's put create new strategy. That's going to bring in just a template. It's just a template of a strategy. Don't get scared. There is some code so you can at least see something going on in the screen. Next, I'm going to add it to the chart to see that strategy. This is not the strategy that we're going to build, but we're just going to see and have some expectations of what can we get out of a strategy. We can see the performance, the overview, the trade analysis. Here we have tons of statistics, risk performance ratios, and the list of each individual trade. None of these things you can do with only with an indicator. Neither you can see in the screen where it took a long, it took a short, and all of that. In the previous one, we were just seeing the signal where the technical conditions happen. But in reality, we are still not applying any strategy. There is no stop loss, no take profit, none of the strategy side of things, none of the risk management either, just the crosses of the moving averages. And in here, we can get all that additional thing. And what is the template doing? Well, it's actually achieving something very similar to what we are going to work on today. But we're going to get rid of this and we're going to do it ourselves. So first step is I'm going to bring everything that we already achieved in the indicator. That way we don't repeat the previous session, right? We are going to use the same strategy, which is going to be the fast moving average with 50 and 100, the slow. Then we calculate it using the candle close and the selected lengths. Then we plot them so we can see the two moving averages in the screen. And then we got the two signals, the buy and the sell, or the crossover and the cross under. Very simple. And then we plot those shapes. That's what we achieved in the previous session. And then this thing in here, I'm going to exclude it because this is to do with being able to backtest it. Let me explain. Let's just do a parenthesis. In the previous session, I created code in that line number 22 to be able to plug it into an indicator like absolute no. So it can consume these two signals, the buy and the sell, as a source, and it can backtest it in a much more complex system for backtesting external. The absolute noise is part of the package of indicators I sell. You don't need that. We're going to build one here. It's not going to be as complex and as advanced as absolute no. Definitely not. That will take probably months to get there. But what we're going to achieve here is still very valuable. So let's remove this. We don't need an external backtester of this. This is going to be a strategy by itself. So it's going to do that thing with the strategy object. So far, we have all of this that is just visual. We're still not taking any long or anything like that. So what we can do is we can go into ChatGPT and we can say, summarize the most useful methods for testing a strategy in PineScript. And we got the core methods, we got the entry, the close, the exit, and all of that. We're going to go through them and we're going to decide what we can use. For the strategy, definitely we need it, and we already have it, right? We have a strategy that's called My Strategy, and it's got overlay and a bunch of things that are gonna overcomplicate the session. So let's just focus on that line number 5 says that we are building a strategy. That's it. Then we need a as well an entry so we can start trading. We need to put a long or a short, and we're going to need the close that is going to close the position manually. Whenever we get a signal, for example, the sell signal, we can say close the long. And then we have an exit that you can place specific exit levels prior. That's with limit orders. In this session, we could play a little bit with exit versus close. Remember, the close is more or less the signal triggers and you want to exit, right? And that's when you use close. But if you have it up front a level of price where you want to exit and you want to place a limit close, then you can use exit and you can define that target level. You can also do orders, okay? Like place an order to enter if we reach certain price for a short or for a long too. Those are the 5 most important things that you need to know in order to do strategies. Of course, there's a lot of additional complexity about the sizing of the order, about how much you want to close, if you want to reduce only instead of closing 100% of the position, whether you want to deal with the quote in USDT or in euro, or whether you want to, apply different fees or slippage percentages. All of that complexity, let's park it for now. Let's focus on the core of trading, entering, exiting when the indicators say so, because that is already like 90% of progress towards getting a proper strategy in place. So we got all the indicator stuff and we don't have the strategy. So we need to enter. And we have a code in here that says buy signal. So in theory, we could say that we could focus on the long strategy for now. We could mix a long and a short in the same strategy. That is easy, but let's keep it very simple. Let's do just a long, and you're going to see that doing the short is just upside down everything. It's not a problem. Also, I liked having my strategies separated. First, I evaluate the long and then the short separate, and then you see the drawdowns independently and the different metrics independently. So it's good to have like a toggle in the indicator to at some point enable one, at some point the other one, and sometimes both together. That's very convenient. Let's focus on the long. So let's say we're going to use the entry, and we can say when we have the buy signal, we're going to enter in a long, and for that we can use simply this code in here for the long. Let's see if it's going to compile, because PineScript has different versions just like any other software, and currently the latest is version 6. And you're going to notice that if you don't tell ChatGPT we are on version 6, most likely ChatGPT is going to spit out 5, if not even version 4. So you have to explicitly say, give me version 6, or sometimes you get the code and it's still not version 6 and you need to kind of force the hand second time. We already have some errors in here. For example, this says that the buy signal is not declared. That's because the name we gave it is without capital. So let's put that like that. And also the entry doesn't exist. So let's not trust ChatGPT, okay? Strategy, and let's just use autocomplete, and let's use the function entry, and we're gonna get the documentation anyways here. It needs an ID, and the ID, I'm gonna call it a long, and then a direction, which is strategy long, and now we need the quantity, and I don't know if quantity is I don't think it's mandatory. I think it's an optional. And the direction, limit, order, stop, blah, 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 alert message. Okay, so there isn't anymore a when. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in an if. So if buy signal, then we enter in a long. And let's call this SMA strategy. Right. You can see that it's already plotting things. And probably there is just a single trade that never exits, and it's a 2000% in profit. Wow. We made an amazing strategy immediately. No, we are only entering, we're never exiting, and we are in a bull market. So that is a bummer, but we just enter and we haven't exit on any exit signal. So if we say now, if sell signal, we can say strategy, let's use the close. Do you still remember what's the difference between close and exit? Let's go back to our cheating code in here. So the close is closing the position manually, typically when you get a signal coming in, and the exit is to exit with take profit, stop loss, trailing stop parameter, okay? And since we want to use the sell signal, we can say close, and we need to give a few parameters in here. So let me, how can I get the parameters? Come on, let's close the long, let's put the comma, okay? And the comment is probably not mandatory, so that's just all fine. And that should be closing the long. Let's go into the strategy tester and let's see a few positions that are being taking place in here, and let's see if it's doing something. So the first trick, we're gonna click on this, not working. It used to work. I used to click in different areas and it used to go, okay, this one is working. Let's go back in time to the first trade. It used to work that you pick one of the trades. Maybe it's this. And if I go to the very end of time, all right, they introduced this thing there to travel to that particular entry or exit. So we got in 2017 an entry with a bullish cross, and that bullish cross exits around November. You can see it in here, and it makes 55%. So once you start seeing results, we need now to become a bit paranoid and think, well, what could be wrong in here? What could it be that we are missing? And I want you to have that attitude, because this green curve looking like this is the perfect retail trap, and in so many ways, right? Because people find strategies, they see green, they are desperate to deploy it in the market, and there's so many ways that this can go wrong, particularly if it's the first time that you deal with this sort of tech. Right? You see the green and you think that is for granted. It cannot be more far from that. First of all, we need to edit the settings in here, and we need to go to properties. Okay, if you have never been in properties and you've been working with strategies, you've been wasting your time most likely, because you need to understand all the settings and understand how can you get closer to a realistic backtest. And first, this says initial capital, and it's got, how much is this? 1 million. And base currency is default. I guess that's dollars. Then in here, the order size, we have the quantity. So I guess this is buying one quantity. I don't remember very fresh this part, but let me see the documentation. Quantity per trade in the selected unit. So is this really buying just $1 or 1 BTC? It could be 1 BTC. So let's do it with percentage. In this case, we're doing compounding. Let's say you enter with 10% of the capital. So the first trade is going to enter with 100,000 out of the 1 million, and is not going to do pyramiding. That means that only one order, one position can be open at the time. Let's read this as well. Maximum number of successive entries allowed in the same direction. Then you have commission. Okay, so here, let's say we are going to introduce something like 007. Check your own exchange for that. And you can also introduce ticks of slippage and start making it a bit more challenging for the strategy to behave more realistically. And cool, using start and OHL on bar close, fill the orders on bar close. If we do it on bar close, is this going to change? Just slightly. Cool. So this is a bit closer to what you will run in a real market. Now, if we do it more aggressive, if we put here, let's say use all the capital that you have, every trade, of course, you're going to get a crazy amount of return. But at the same time, the drawdowns are going to be very significant as well. We have a drawdown maximum of 62%. So probably from these highs in this area here, if you click in the chart, you immediately go to 2021 in March. And it says that at that point, there was a huge drawdown because the market corrected 55% on Bitcoin. So in the 4-hour time frame, yep, there was some damage. And the damage kind of stopped around, what date is this? January 2024. Wow. And then it started reverting back to the upside. So this is one way that we can exit. We're going to look into alternative ways of exiting, just to get our hands dirty in trying out different alternatives. Before we go into a limit exit with a fixed percentage exit, what we could do is also explore. Let's put this into some typical number. This is 100% is too much. Let's do 30, which is already pretty degen, and that gives us 189% and a drawdown of 23%. Okay, 23 is not necessarily the best for trading with leverage. You always need to think like this. I want to find a strategy that has the less drawdown, that it doesn't move that much, right? That is just a steady, slow, and very relaxed and calm move up of the equity. You don't want these massive peaks and then long periods of drawdown. So this is not the perfect strategy. It doesn't look already very great. It should be more like the closer it is to a straight line from one end to the top end, that increases the Sharpe ratio, and that also allows you, thanks to a reduced drawdown, to use leverage. And the key in strategies is to find those, okay? So in spot, slow but steady up with very little hiccups. No martingale, because martingale gets that very easily, but martingale is a ticking bomb, right? At some point, those DCA down, if the market dumps too heavy, you get into a red back and you end up worse than you ever been in all history of the performance of that strategy. So careful with martingale. But if you are doing stop loss and take profit and you got a very normal line pointing up, that's great. And at that point, with that low drawdown, you can introduce leverage and you feel more comfortable to do that. And that's how you can turn these multiple years making 100% into making a lot more than that. Yeah. Right, so in the strategy, we already reduced that. Now let's see if we change numbers. So let's say if we bump this to a more conservative one, we're going to go 100 to 100, because that's going to give less trades and possibly less drawdown. So we got better performance for 120, way less trades, just 40 trades and 15% drawdown. Very interesting. With 50 and 100, I forgot, it's almost double the number of trades, half the profit, and 7 to 8% more drawdown, which is not great. That means that on the 4 hour, this 100 to 100 is performing better. But of course, it needs to resonate with you, the strategy. You need to like having a strategy that is so quiet and boring. It's really boring to follow with a strategy like this. It works better, right? 100 to 100, yeah, works. But you spend sometimes 1 or 2 months where there is no signal. And you're just going to be, hey, are you going to do something? And maybe when you switch it off because you think it's broken, it triggers a deal. Anyways, this is as much as we can do in the basics. We got signal to exit, signal to enter. Let's play with exit instead of close. That means let's put a limit order. And for that, we're going to need, let's see if I remember, this is going to be a challenge. I haven't done PineScript in very long. Strategy exit from entry long. We can introduce a stop level and we can introduce a limit level. And I don't know if we can introduce just one or the other. I think there was a requirement to at least put one of them. Otherwise the exit doesn't work. So maybe let's play with both, but we need to calculate a level. So give me the code for using strategy exit for 2% take profit and 1% stop loss. And let's see if we can get that. So we enter on the long like this, and then we have a take profit, a stop loss of 1 and 2, and the exit. Cool. I don't need to do the math because I didn't remember this formula. Basically, from the close, we are doing a 100 plus 1 divided by 100. So this is the whole position plus stop loss. I think this is wrong. 1. Let me do it by myself because I'm not sure. You see, I don't trust ChatGPT. It might be doing something weird. Let's do it in our own way. And PineScript is really annoying with the line breaks. It is constantly failing to compile if you don't put the precise number of spaces that it it once. So let's put this, let's say, something that we can see in the chart to see if it's working. And let's go to the strategy tester. Let's look at the trades. Let me see the first trade. Let's go to this trade and let's calculate how much this moved up. As you can see, it's exiting way too late. This is 70% up, and in the Pine editor, this says close, take profit, percentage. Oh, it's correct. Yes, because we need to multiply. So it's 1 plus the proportion of 10 over 100. That gives you 0.1. So it's 1.1 multiplied by the close. And for some reason, this is placing the limit very far. So I'm not sure what it's doing wrong on the limit in here. Ah, got it. Because this needs to track the price where we enter, and we need to place that exit right where we enter. Okay, got it. Right. So when we are entering, we're gonna place this exit immediately, and we are gonna do it in that same candle. And let's see if this fixes the issue. Probably, yeah, we fixed it. Cool. I forgot about that. Right. So on the buy, when we get a buy signal, when we want to exit at a fixed take profit and a fixed stop loss, we have to imagine you are in the exchange. You want to enter on the signal. So you get the signal in your phone and you go to the exchange. Therefore, you enter. You should immediately calculate where is your stop loss and your take profit and place it straight away in the same candle. So we need to do it in the same moment that we know that we need to enter. We immediately place the exit. Why is that? Why it wasn't working before? Because when I have this code outside the if, as before, what it's doing is it's placing an exit on every candle based on the close, the previous close. Therefore, it's constantly moving the exit, okay? That's why we got into 70%. And then we ended up from one of those candles coming back down and hitting the stop loss. So it's not the correct way of doing trailing, okay? I think it was just a messy behavior because of placing this in the wrong place. Now we got 20 and 10. What I would like to do is have some parameters to control that. So instead of using these static values, I'm gonna tidy up my code and get it like this. That's not gonna compile, that's okay. And I'm gonna place at the top together with the other parameters that were before, which is the length of the moving averages. I'm gonna turn these two into parameters well, and they're gonna be called take profit and stop loss. So input, and stop loss. In that way, now I can redeploy the script and I can keep this looking. Look at the shape of this with stop loss and take profit. It's even worse than before. And in terms of all the volatility and everything, I think, let me see if the ratios are here. The Sharpe ratio is 0.078, very low quality as a strategy. We are not trying to, I'm not trying to impress you with the best strategy. I'm trying to get you introduced to building your own strategies. So let's say we do a take profit with a way bigger ratio. Ratio of what? Ratio of take profit versus stop loss. At the moment is 2:1. We could do 3:1, something like this, and then we could look into the results of this. That has increased a little bit the Sharpe ratio. That means that the curve up is starting to be a little bit better to trade it with leverage, but still not great, right? It's just a 0.1 versus a 0.07. We need to get into higher numbers of Sharpe ratio. We need to bump as well the Sortino and other ratios to get into a territory that is closer to something good. And we're not even talking about optimization or anything like that. This is just seeing how will it go in the past with these specific parameters. And it doesn't guarantee future performance at all, okay? Particularly when you get something really good, don't assume that that's going to repeat, because markets change in many ways. You have change of regime, you have bear markets, bull markets, sideways. There's a lot of complexity to just blindly assume that it's going to repeat. Now with 50, let's see how it goes. I think it's just pretty much the same. And let's increase the number of trades. Let's go with the original fast 50 and 100, and it's looking like this. It's got a 21. We can also test it in lower time frames and see if it could be a good scalping. Typically, when you drop the time frame too much, you start catching a lot of noise. It's very difficult. So if you're gonna do something basic like moving averages, trading, and stuff like that, I suggest that you stick to the 4-hour or higher, and that you backtest long periods of time where you see that a laid back strategy can perform well. Notice some other things that, for example, in here there is a buy signal, but we are not entering. Why is that? Can you figure why we're not entering on this buy? Is it broken, the strategy? And why we're not exiting on this signal sell? It is because we enter along in here. We enter along and we said that we are only going to allow pyramiding of 1. And that means that we are not going to have two concurrent positions in the same side. So if I put this to 2, that means that I'm going to use 30% of the equity in one position, and I'm going to allow the second one to kick in with the other 30%. And we still have 40 left. So let's see how that changes everything. So now I'm in a long in here, and I'm also in a long in here. And then I get an exit pretty much in the same candle. That is a little bit odd. Maybe there's something wrong in the implementation. But you can see how that affects everything. That is showing us a 283 with 26. And there's a bit more of drawdown. There's more trades, definitely. And we are not controlling whether the two trades enter at the same price, at a better price, or at a worse price. We are not doing any of that. We could do all of that in the code. We could decide to track in here how many positions we have open. The strategy object gives you everything. It's like a database that knows everything that has happened so far in the strategy. How many times you enter, how much is your unrealized profit and loss, how many positions you currently have open, and you can use those variables that are all nested inside strategy. You can write down strategy dot and then pick one of these things and explore what you can do with that. And you could say how many positions I have open, and if there is one position already open and I'm not lower than 5% deviation down, then don't allow another long. It depends if you want to average up or average down, and you could control those things. In reality, let's go into the limitations now. So we give a motivation, and I kind of tease you out of PineScript into Python, because that's when things get serious. This is an amazing tool to get an initial idea of what you can do, and you can even trade this. Like, for example, Absolute No is fantastic to trade with martingale, but giving you additional elements to control the risk and to incorporate tons of indicators and stuff. But if you're serious about trading and you want strategies that can, be stable enough for cross-regime, cross multiple years, then you really need to move into Python, okay? If you do it with this, you could come up with a setup that works well in the bull market and another one that works well in the bear market, and you're going to be responsible for deciding which one you want to be running, okay? So pretty much it's a mixture between being a quant, an algo trader that leaves everything unattended, and a manual trader, because the manual trader needs to decide if it's going to long or short. If you are in between, you run a bot, but you still rely on knowing where you are. You understand? It's kind of a hybrid between the two worlds if you do it with TradingView, because you're going to have to create a strategy and expect it to continue working, and then monitor, and then pull out right before there is a regime change, and then your strategy alpha has decay. If you step into Python and you do more statistical analysis, and you're really trading a hedge that you are studying with math and everything, and the strategy by itself, either by using AI or walking forward windows with a whole infrastructure to monitor the market and to automatically adapt, well, then maybe you can kind of leave it running by itself. But I'm tempted to say that things on PineScript have those limitations, that you have to be a little bit of a hybrid trader. Half algo, but still with the eyes on what you're doing, because this will never adapt. Basically, that's the limitation, and that leads us into potentially, if you guys are interested, I can do the next session to move this strategy out of this into Python, and I can show you how to optimize it with past performance, and then see how it behaves in the future based of our sample data, so we can see if we are creating strategies that are overfitted and all of those things that here we cannot see. I mean, it's very difficult to do it on PineScript in the strategy tester. We can only look back and say, well, this did work. Who knows if it's going to work in the future? With Python, we could potentially get closer to answer the question of whether in the future it might work better with higher levels of confidence that we can get on PineScript. Samuel is saying that will be great. Thank you. Yeah, and I have an actual group that I'm growing, a working group around that advanced level, where you actually need to be able to code and understand a lot of tech. Ideally, you need to be a developer or something to step in that area, because it's very time consuming and it requires tens of things that you need to learn to get all those skill sets together: data science, coding, market, indicators, TA, and having also the computer to be able to run those optimizations and all of that. So I'm trying to form a team on that area, and that is the exclusive use that we're giving to Discord at the moment. And this team is open. You can apply to join the team, but if you don't put the merits to stay in that inner circle where we're going to be working on farming strategies and deploying the best automated strategies into the market, then you're probably going to hear from us once we offer it as a copy trading or stuff like that. But the team that I'm forming is basically to work on this. It's going to be probably a very small team, 3-4 people, where we can work a few hours a week, everybody together, to progress on this. No longer PineScript or stuff like that. This is extremely cool and it's the step in the right direction, but it's not the last tip of the iceberg for backtesting and for building sustainable strategies. Any questions about strategy? We have around 10 minutes left. Otherwise, I'm just gonna continue to look at the code, and in the meantime, if you want to write something there, I can find some improvements that we could do. So I'm thinking to incorporate volume in here. So volume, we can catch it from the object. If I remember right, it's just simply volume. What we could do is we could do the volume and the moving average of the volume. So TA, SMA, let's do the moving average of the volume. Sorry about that. 14, and we can say let me build a filter, volume filter, and we're gonna have it by default enabled. Yeah, that's true. Enable volume filter, and I'm gonna basically enter on by signal, and volume needs to be higher, or let's do it clean. Volume condition. The volume condition is that the volume needs to be higher than volume MA. Let's call it volume MA, like this. That's the condition. So, and either the volume filter is false, or we have the volume condition. What I did basically is I say I'm incorporating the filter of the volume together with the by signal, and I'm saying enter when there is a by, and the volume filter is either false, and then I don't care about the volume condition, or the volume condition is true and the volume filter is on. Makes sense? So let's see the performance of that. Of course, it's filtering a lot of trades. Let's go in here. If I remove the volume filter, I get a 283 and 26 drawdown. With the volume, I reduce 10% the drawdown, which is fantastic, but I end up losing 40 trades. So it's all, always a trade-off. You need to find basically the best trade-off and stuff like that. And that's why I like doing these things on Python, because then I can use optimization. And some people might say, you can do optimization on PineScript. No. You can get close to do optimization on PineScript, and actually it's against the terms and conditions of TradingView. So if you do it, be careful because they might close down your account. Some people put some extensions on Chrome to mutate the parameters within certain ranges, all the combinations, and that causes TradingView to basically compare all combinations, and then they capture, what is in the screen. That takes days to really test 1,000 combinations. Well, maybe less, but in Python, 1,000 combinations is a lapse of a few seconds, maybe, or maybe less. In my computer, probably is a fraction of a second to test 10 combinations in one go. It is very slow to do it in PineScript because it needs to be tweaking the values in the UI and waiting for TradingView to respond with this. If you do it in Python, or if you do it in C with vector, then it's incredibly fast, and you're gonna learn very quickly that you need that speed. Otherwise, you're gonna wait forever. And the limitations of PineScript in that end, from the point of view of the terms and condition and the speed of those extensions, makes it unviable, really, to do optimization. And then after you do this, you need to do it with multiple assets. Then you need to move the windows, do forward. It's just not the tool for optimizing. So I'm going to leave it there, and I hope you enjoy the session and start thinking what you want for the next session, which is going to be end of August. We might need to skip August session. Well, I'll let you know about that in the next session. Guys, this video is going to go live on Friday, so people are going to watch it in the shorter edited version. I'm going to send the video for editing in just a second, and we're going to upload it on Friday as usual. If you want to be part of the live session, if you want to suggest things, become an elite member, and that way you're supporting the team and the sessions as well. So thanks so much for that, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye. Take care.